Hello everyone and welcome to the very first and special edition of Nirmaan Conservation Conversations. I'm your host Anusha. Now before going into the conversation, for those who aren't aware of Nirmaan, it is a registered NGO started by BITS Pilani students, and it has been impacting more than 20 lakh plus beneficiaries in education, skill development and entrepreneurship, environment, health and well-being since 2005. Coming to today's conversation, our spotlight is on global celebration of World Wetlands Day. Each year, it is observed on February 2nd. Wetlands are more than just landscape pictures. They are not only nature's filters but also flood regulators for countless species. Today, we are diving into the world of wetlands, exploring their importance and celebrating the efforts of those who work tirelessly to protect and restore these ecosystems. But that's not all. We have a true water hero with us, none other than Priyanshu Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a passionate environmentalist and a civil engineering graduate from IIT Bombay. As the visionary founder of Clean Water, Priyanshu has pioneered innovative solutions, notably the use of artificial floating islands. These islands, inspired by natural wetlands, not only absorb pollutants but also stand as symbols of hope for India's water bodies. Welcome to Nirmaan Conservation Conversations, Priyanshu.
Thank you so much, Anusha. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to a great conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, Priyanshu, can you share a bit about your journey as a founder of Clean Water and what sparked about this passion for water conservation?
My journey of starting clean water actually begins somewhere in 2016. Before that, I was working with a real estate startup called housing.com, which was a really great startup and the flag bearer of that startup. I joined the company pretty early, got to lead a team of about 700 people at a tender age of 24, 25, and was part of CEO's office as well. The company grew to 2,700 employees, 1,800 crore valuation, after which even I got the confidence that, hey, I can start an organization myself. But at the same time, I wanted to solve a major social problem in the process. So thought about solid waste, thought about energy, but both of them were very capital intensive. But water was a good sector to enter into. So that's what I did. I moved back to my hometown, Indore, and started Clean Water. We actually first began with setting up sewage treatment plants, did just that for about 3 years, and then eventually moved on to rejuvenating water bodies. So that's been my journey of kind of starting Clean Water. Yeah.
That's so nice. I see these days many of the youth going into the wastewater sector, and it's really inspiring actually.
Right. Thank you so much. I think it's a upcoming sector. The governments and the citizens focus on removing pollution, rejuvenating water bodies, treating wastewater, ensuring our nalas flow clean, like clean water flows in our drains and nalas. That has come up in everybody's consciousness and attention. And therefore, the sector is expected to grow in double digits CAGR, and therefore a good professional sector to be entering into.
Right. Yeah. So, any insights about World Wetlands Day and why wetlands have to be conserved?
We as humans often have a lot of ego and overlook the importance of wetlands and nature and the delicate ecosystem, the food chain associated with it. In urban areas, wetlands are getting shrunk. The area spread is getting reduced, but they are very, very essential uh, because they are the last hotspots of ecology and biodiversity in an urban area. For example, it is said that if all the bees disappeared from the face of the earth, even humans would not be able to last for a long amount of time. So the importance of ecology, birds, underwater, aquatic life, insects, invertebrates, all of them is very, very valuable. And wetlands kind of help protect the ecology biodiversity. Furthermore, they regulate the temperature of an urban area as well. Any water body does. And it cleans the air. It gives the people a place of recreation as well. So protecting wetlands in urban areas and even outside has become very, very critical, particularly with the urban sprawl growing and nature getting affected. Plus, these wetlands are a carbon sink. They sequester carbon from the atmosphere and put it in the ground. And with the global temperatures rising and humans trying to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius, wetlands have a very crucial role to play in that.
Okay. So, I mean, how did you think it has affected Chennai, the very recent floods?
Oh, so I think it has affected Chennai and almost every other city alike. For example, we see droughts and floods in Chennai in the same year, right? Uh, when in the monsoon it rains, you have floods everywhere, and the water just rushes off the concrete pavements that we have and into the sea. And in the summers, we face droughts. The city of Chennai or Bangalore, or most of the urban cities in India today. Uh, so, had there been wetlands, this would not have happened. Wetlands ensure that the excess water or the water falling during monsoons is um, stored in these lakes, ponds, wetlands, and they are also put into the ground. They recharge the groundwater as well. And if cities have a good enough groundwater table, they won't really be running out of water. But we're kind of consuming our groundwater in a very, very fast manner. And with the wetland shrinking, the groundwater is not able to get recharged in the appropriate amount. And therefore, for Chennai or any other city, protecting the wetlands, maintaining them is very, very crucial.
So, coming to the clean water, so what are these floating islands on water bodies, and what were some of the challenges usually these floating islands address when compared to the traditional technologies?
Got it. So our idea for floating islands, which are also known as floating wetlands, actually came from the work that we were doing before this, which was setting up sewage treatment plants. There's this particular technology often used for tertiary treatment of water, which is a planted gravel filter. Basically, where you pass water through the roots of certain wetland plants, and you grow these wetland plants on gravel without any soil at their roots. And so these wetlands and these plants we understood help clean the water, uptake nutrients, heavy metals, etc. But in sewage treatment plants, they are kind of constructed in underground tanks. What we thought to ourselves when kind of focusing on water bodies is, let's say we started about 5 years back, rejuvenating water bodies in about 2018 actually. We realized nobody is into rejuvenating water bodies. And one of the major constraints when actually working at urban water bodies is there's often no space available around the water bodies. The lakes, the drains are encroached from all sides. Therefore, you need a solution which does not occupy land near the water bodies. And if it can float on the water and still solve the problem, that would be a great solution, right? The other constraints that you kind of work under are that it should be a nature-based or a biological solution and should not be a chemical solution. Should require as little of electromechanical components in terms so that they could be maintained over a longer period of time. So we actually picked up this concept of how wetlands used to clean water in sewage treatment plants and made a product version of it. We started making smaller islands of 1 by 1 meter. And till date, we have actually made more than 18 different types of floating wetlands of wood, metal, aluminium, FRP, different materials, different shapes, sizes, 1 by 1, 2 by 2 meters, etc. And how these actually work is comparable to how a natural wetland would work. So we have a floating platform on which we plant these wetland species of plants, and we add biomedia underneath the islands. So these biomedia are made of recycled plastic, and their purpose is to provide surface area for the beneficial bacteria to come and attach to. And it is these bacteria that do major amount of treatment. What people actually get wrong with floating islands or wetlands is that they think plants are doing majority of the treatment, which is incorrect. It's the bacteria that we colonize underneath the island that remove the major amount of pollutants. So these pollutants could be in the form of nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and their compounds. These wetlands or floating islands also help to uptake heavy metals, which is another major pollutant. Um, so this is how floating islands work in terms of water quality improvement. Furthermore, these bacteria that had developed underneath the island are food for smaller organisms like insects, etc. So these biofilms or bacterial colonies that developed are eaten by small insects, which are eaten by fish, which are eaten by birds, or kind of harvested out of the water by humans as well. So the nutrients that were a pollutant in the water body are now being transformed into insects, fishes, and birds and taken out of the ecosystem. That's how you remove the pollutants from the ecosystem. And so, besides water treatment, our islands actually provide ecological and biodiversity benefits as well. They provide habitat. Fishes want shade. They come and hide underneath our islands. But the birds are smarter. They would come and sit on top of the island looking to hunt for fish. We have seen snakes sitting on top of our islands. At Piplihana Lake in Indore, where we installed a few islands, we've seen ducks raise multiple generations on our island. So there were about 3 ducks on the at the lake. They laid about 10 to 12 eggs on one of our floating islands. Then they became 10 to 12, and now they've kind of given another batch of eggs. So they help in ecology, biodiversity restoration as well. Plus, it's a beautification tool at the same time. So when you plant flowering plants on top of these wetlands, they look really beautiful, add a aesthetic appeal to the surroundings as well. So that's how islands work.
Nice, nice. So how scalable is this technology?
Very scalable. So I do understand your question that with hardware-based startups, often a challenge of scaling up comes into play. And particularly when thinking of rejuvenating water bodies, it is a genuine question as how could you really be rejuvenating thousands and lakhs of water bodies when you might take a few months just to rejuvenate one. So how we're trying to cater to that is we're trying to play our part in the entire picture. For example, when you want to rejuvenate a lake, which is in a really bad situation, you would come and first, let's say, pick up the garbage around it. You would fill the lake. You would make a boundary wall around it, plant some trees around it, and then try to also improve the water quality. So all of these other services, the civil works, the earth works, these are we really don't get into these services because any NGO, any contractor can do this job much better than us at a much better price, and local players could do this much better. But where their capability ends and our expertise begins is in terms of water quality improvement. Even after somebody makes a boundary wall, plants some trees, picks up the garbage, the water is still polluted, right? And that's exactly where we come in with our products. So we offer 3 products. The first is floating islands, aka floating wetlands. The second are aerators to provide oxygen in the water to improve DO levels. And the third is biocultures or bacterial solutions, which come in the form of a powder or a liquid and can be readily dosed on the water to improve the water quality. So that's how we're going about it, by just providing our products and letting other partners take care of all of the other activities at the lake so that we could scale really fast and be catering to tens and tens of thousands of water bodies every year. Because by focusing on products, we can stick to manufacture them centrally in one location like Indore, and ship them to any water body across the globe. So by limiting ourselves to manufacturing and products, we become scalable and thus can cater to thousands of water bodies simultaneously.
So the biomedia in the sense, like, is it a mixed consortium or what exactly is it?
Yes, so our bacterial cultures are a mix of multiple species of bacteria, more than actually 5 different types of bacteria. So you see, in water, anything except for H2O is a pollutant, right? It could be heavy metals, it could be nutrients, it could be BOD, COD. Then there's the issue of odor and color. So these different bacteria target different pollutant groups. For example, one bacteria could help remove the odor, the other could improve the water color of, the third one could be catering to certain types of nutrients. So that's why we add different kinds of bacteria in the same culture or solution. Uh, and if somebody gives us a test report beforehand and wants us to customize a bacterial solution as well, we can do that as well.
Okay. So, could you elaborate your work in Indore and what kind of challenges you have faced during its implementation?
Sure. So we started our journey in water body rejuvenation back in 2018. We developed a few floating islands first at our own cost, tried them on a few water bodies to check how long they last, whether the plants are able to grow or not, etc. And then we actually went on to rejuvenate a lake completely. In 2019, we rejuvenated a small pond called Nalanda Sarovar, which is inside a police training college campus in Indore. So we rejuvenated that water body using our floating wetlands, recirculating biofilter, ensuring aeration and physical filtration as well. And so we rejuvenated this pond within a few months. Got the award of Water Hero from Central Government Jal Shakti for this particular project. And we were beginning to pick up momentum, but then lockdown was enforced, which was actually a really bad time for this particular sector because for the government, water bodies anyways used to be on the last priority list. And like during COVID, they had absolutely run out of funds for water body rejuvenation projects. And even the CSR funds, the corporate social responsibility funds, were diverted elsewhere, like towards COVID relief efforts. So that was a tough time for us. But after COVID, we've bounced back. We've recently restored another lake in Indore called Piplihana Lake. And so this is how we've been going about it. You also mentioned about working with the government. And I think that's one of the major challenges that we face is working with the government because floating wetlands, biocultures, all of these are new products that government wasn't really aware of, at least till a few years back. And unlike any other standardized product, like a cement, concrete, structural rods, etc., these aren't kind of products that are already listed in SOR rates, right? Standard operating rates of governments, etc. So the first problem we face is we have to educate the government and our clients of what floating wetlands are, what bacteria are, and what benefits it could provide to them. Then the next challenge we face is, okay, has a tender been published of this anywhere? Because any government official would like to have a reference tender first, so which they can maybe copy and kind of adopt the tender themselves. In the absence of a tender from any other government place, it becomes much more difficult for us to work with the government. Um, and then another challenge that we face is, again, with the government, is related to payment issues. That is one reason why we've stopped working with the government altogether. Um, so I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the sector right now, is the government itself. Because anybody looking to rejuvenate a water body has to work with the government. The local municipal corporation or any government department would be owning these water bodies. And without their permission or knowledge, it's really hard to be rejuvenating a water body. Uh, that's why we prefer to work with CSR funds, NGOs, and private organizations rather than work with the government. And even if we have to work with the government, we often like to put a distributor in between. So we want to, let's say, become the Kirloskar of water body rejuvenation, where we provide our products, but really don't go up and pick up tenders ourselves. We have a distributor network that does the supply to the government. So that's how we're kind of catering to these roadblocks that come our way.
Yeah, okay. So how do you keep your relationship strong, like whether it's NGO or the corporates? So how do you keep them strong?
So it's really about meeting expectations. Let's say if there's any corporate looking to rejuvenate a water body, let's say if it is near their office, they want that water body to be clean. They don't want water hyacinth or algae covering the entire surface. They don't want stench from that water body or the color to be either green or brown or black. So we have to understand their expectations. They want the water body to be clean. They want the ecology to be rejuvenated as well. There should be birds, preferably even migratory birds that they can go and see, even if they can spend some time at the water body. So those are the expectations, whether it be a corporate client or a NGO. Uh, Most of the things people or organizations are able to do by themselves. For example, anybody can make a boundary wall, right? Um, Anybody can gather volunteers or a team and pick up garbage or do plantations around a water body. And but even after you do that, and if the water is not clean, you won't really say the lake is rejuvenated. And that's the exact place where we come in, provide our products to improve the water quality, uh, rejuvenate it so that the client's expectations are met, whether it be a CSR fund or a NGO. So that's how we kind of go about it.
Right. So, could you walk us through your typical action plan when it comes to reviving water bodies and also elaborate on some of the technical aspects of floating islands, especially the choice of materials and the plants, the kind of plants you use?
Got it. So whenever we get a new lead of rejuvenating a water body, we basically try to understand who the client is, where the funding for this is going to come from. Is it going to come from the government or CSR funds or any other source? Uh, who's our partner? Generally prefer a NGO partner or any other, let's say, government supplier or contractor as well. So we talk to them, understand what the problem is and what their expectations are. The problems generally are more about untreated sewage or effluents coming in, a lot of solid waste around the water body, fish is not able to survive in the water, therefore birds no longer flock to these water bodies. So we understand such problems and what their expectations are or what they want the final outcome to be. Depending on that, we give them solutions. Maybe you could go for 20 floating wetlands, 4 aerators, and 100 kilograms of bacteria. With this, you will be able to maintain a great water quality. No invasive species would be on the surface of the lake, etc. And that's how we provide a solution and let our partners take care of the other things, like I mentioned, like plantation, garbage collection drive, boundary works, etc., desilting. And that's how we kind of proceed with it. And you also asked about how floating islands work technically. So think of this as a sewage treatment plant, particularly MBBR-based sewage treatment plants. How that happens is how water treatment happens in a sewage treatment plant is the raw sewage comes in, you remove solids that could be settled by gravity, but a lot of pollutants still remain. Then you pump this water into a aeration tank, generally in a activated sludge process sewage treatment plants. That's what we try to do as well. We try to mimic that atmosphere created there by providing aerators, by providing biomedia, which is also again used in the reactor tanks in sewage treatment plants, so that these bacteria could come and attach to the biomedium, and with the aeration provided, it ensures BOD and COD removal. Our plants take up heavy metals, so they are also removed. In terms of nutrient removal, we add biocultures, plus our wetlands and the biofilms also help in nutrient removal. And so with all of these three solutions, we try to ensure that we remove each kind of pollutant, and so that the lake actually becomes clean. And therefore, like focusing not just on one kind of solution and looking at the broader picture of removing all kinds of pollutants is critical to actually rejuvenating a water body.
Okay. What about these pharmaceutical compounds, the emerging contaminants? So, like, what kind of removal does it give?
Got it. So in terms of pharmaceutical or chemical pollutants, the right way to go about it is not to let them enter the water bodies, because chemicals are present in such a multiple forms. Like there could be so many different types of chemicals that could be present, and expecting plants or bacteria to be catering to and removing all of them is just not possible. So, as a blueprint of rejuvenating any water body, you could still let some untreated sewage come in, but you should not let any chemicals come in. If they come in, let's say, small trace amounts through our detergents or fertilizers, they're still okay as long as they're in trace amounts. But as a broader blueprint, the chemical sources in effluents need to be tapped at the source itself, whether whichever industry or hospital they are coming from, and should not be let into these water bodies. That's how you have to go about it. Yeah.
Okay. So furthermore, how do you ensure the sustainability of the projects beyond the working phase? How do you manage the sustainability?
But that's a really good question, and I think a point that's everybody in the country and the world should really be thinking about, because what I have observed in the past few years is often a few water bodies get rejuvenated. They maintain for 3 months, 6 months, or maybe a year, till the time the donor was involved or the implementing agency was taking care of the operations and maintenance. But as soon as the agency goes away or the funding for this stops, the water bodies go back to their old polluted state. And therefore, rejuvenating them one time is just half of the solution. The other half is maintaining them for a longer period of time. And so building a commercial layer on top of the rejuvenation projects is very critical, so that this revenue could sponsor the maintenance in the coming times. And so we're trying to come up with models where revenue could be generated from the water bodies. So a lot of activities could be done at lakes, rivers, and all kinds of water bodies, which are environment friendly, which do not harm the environment in any way, but can still generate revenue. For example, non-motorized boating on top of the lake can generate revenue. Fishing is a second source of revenue. You could set up a nursery on the dry part of the lake, on the land part around the lake. You could do underwater farming of pearls, oysters, clams. You could do floating farming of lotus, lilies, brahmi, vetiver grass, etc. You could use the land available near the water bodies as another source of revenue. Maybe you could set up advertisements facing the main road that could generate revenue, right? So things like this are very critical to generate revenue, and then the community should be involved as well, and should be overseeing this, so that the revenue generated is used for maintaining the water body and making upgrades whenever necessary. So we're trying to not just take tenders or work orders just to deliver our products, but we're also trying to parallelly push for revenue generation activities at the water body, so that they could be sustainably maintained for a long period of time.
Right, right. I mean, how do you plan to engage the communities in these kind of projects?
So generally, communities living near water bodies are connected, and have a emotional connect to the water bodies. They often do not have a solution or what can they do in an individual capacity. They want to do something about the water body, but an individual can't really be contributing funds for it. They can still spend their time maintaining the lake, etc. So that is exactly where like the community can really participate, is also in terms of revenue generation activities. Somebody has to manage that, lead that, right? So the community living near water bodies, like the fishermen or other people, could be employed at the same water body, giving them livelihood. People who are not really looking for livelihood but looking just to maintain the lakes can be a part of the management team. There are provisions in the law by the government of India that lake committees should be formed after they're rejuvenated, and the maintenance should be done by the communities. Um, People don't really know about this, and often even governments do not push for hand over to the committees and the community. Government often wants to keep the control over these water bodies, but there is still a way. So the community people can first approach the local politicians, the local municipal corporations, and try to get the lake rejuvenated, and in such a manner that the water body is self-sustainable in terms of revenue generation and for maintenance. And then the community can take care of the maintenance, and they can form a committee where the entire community can come in, participate, and maintain the lake. So I think that's the way for the future, that we rejuvenate them one time and let the community take care of it afterwards.
Right. So in that way, it can be sustained. The project can be well sustained. Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. How do you measure and track the environmental and social impact of your projects? So recently, the ESG reporting has come up, so everyone is interested into these kind of details. So
Yeah. So it's really, very honestly, it's really hard to objectively calculate the impact of our work right now, because the methodologies, the processes for measuring those currently do not exist. That's the honest, bitter truth right now. But we are looking to build that up. For example, water bodies are also a source of methane emissions. With the untreated sewage coming in, a lot of sludge also comes with this, which goes and accumulates at the bottom of the lake. Oxygen transfer generally happens at the surface, and oxygen is not able to reach till the bottom of the lake. Therefore, this sludge, which is rotting and decomposing, starts giving out methane. Now, if you aerate the lake from the bottom up, you ensure that methane is prevented from getting emitted into the atmosphere. But the challenge here lies in measuring this impact. What was the quantity of methane that you prevented from getting emitted into the atmosphere? Such a formula or a way to calculate the amount of methane currently does not exist. For example, our other benefits could be preventing waterborne diseases and deaths. If a water body is polluted, mosquitoes will start breeding there. They will spread in the nearby areas, causing jaundice, typhoid, malaria, etc. But if you're able to rejuvenate a water body, keep it clean and mosquito free, you're preventing waterborne diseases and deaths, and the economic angles and the happiness index associated with it. But you really don't have a way to measure that. Also, in terms of biodiversity, right? If the water is clean, the fish population in the same lake or pond can go up to 2 to 5 times. But again, there is no way to measure what is the impact exactly created here. Also, if we prevent eutrophication, uptake the nutrients, etc., there are other benefits associated with that as well. So, Anusha, the problem right now is these methodologies currently do not exist. We understand that measuring impact is a very critical part of rejuvenating water bodies so that we can quantify the benefit that we're providing to everyone. So we are trying to build these methodologies, try to generate carbon credits from water body rejuvenation projects, or blue credits or plastic credits that are coming in. But unfortunately, those things currently do not exist, and that's why we're trying to build that up as well as we go along. And for that, we would require data from multiple water bodies, right? When you extensively collect data from 100 water bodies or more, that is when you can start using this data, start creating formulas, equations of how to measure the impact. But till we get there, measuring impact is going to be difficult, but we're trying to solve that problem so that even other organizations working in the sector could then quantify the impact and could be rewarded accordingly.
right. Yeah, I think I mean it's very important to look into this side because all the corporates wanted the impact. So
Yeah.
yeah. So can you elaborate more on the PPP model, like how it sustained clean water, especially during COVID?
Oh, yeah. So, PPP model is a public-private partnership model. It can alternatively be termed as a RAS model, restoration as a service model. And there could be another version of this, which is a PPCP model, a public-private community partnership model. So the need for this model came at the onset of COVID. Um, During COVID, like I mentioned, we realized that there's no business coming. There's no clients. The government has no funds. Even the CSR people aren't really giving funds for water body rejuvenation projects. So that's when our business kind of came to a temporary halt. And we thought to ourselves, can't we rejuvenate water bodies without taking any funds from the government or CSR donors? And can we really come out of our dependence on customer governments to rejuvenate water bodies? And that's when we came up with this PPP model, similar to how often highways are built. So, for example, when government wants to build a highway, does not have the money, it invites a private contractor to come in who puts in money from his own pocket, builds the highways, and then recovers his investment through toll booths over a certain period of years. Imagine if we could do something similar for water bodies. So our proposition to the government in a PPP model is, look, you're the government, you want to rejuvenate water bodies, but do not have the funds or the expertise for it. Just lease out the lake to us for 5 years, 15 years. And we will put in all of the funds required for for rejuvenating these water bodies one time and maintenance for the coming years. But in order to recover this investment, we'll generate revenue from the water body through the channels I mentioned, like boating, fishing, tourism, advertisements, nursery, etc. To pay back the initial investment, to pay the maintenance costs, and also share some profit and revenue back with the government. So for the government, the water body gets rejuvenated without them having to spend any money or any budget on it. And on the contrary, they start generating revenue, right? It's a win-win for them. Plus, there's a single agency who's doing all of the work. Therefore, the responsibility and the onus of maintaining that water body lies with a single organization. And that's really good, because when there are multiple stakeholders at a water bodies, everybody can play the blame game. That, hey, I did this, but this problem is because of the vendor number 2. Then he put the blame on vendor number 3 and so on. So PPP model could really work. And that's how it kind of originated. So necessity is the mother of invention. And during COVID, when we had run out of customers, that's when we kind of came up with the PPP model. But I must also add, along with this, Anusha, that we are still looking to set up our first PPP project. And really, we haven't been able to get a great response from the government. And that's more to do with how rotten the Indian system is. And people or the government officials prefer to take out tenders rather than lease out lakes on a PPP model. That's the bitter truth. But eventually, we'll be able to push through it and ensure that most of the water bodies are now being kind of maintained on a PPP model. There's also 2 variations of this, where the leasing agency, like organizations like us, can be paying for the entire capex and opex, like one-time restoration and maintenance cost both. There could be some models where the government pays for the capex and the maintenance cost is covered through all of the revenue generating activities. So it's kind of a halfway kind of model where government just has to put in the capex. So such variations of the models could also be developed. And I see that happening in the near future as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, after winning this Water Hero Award from Ministry of Jal Shakti, how did it impact clean water?
Oh, it really gave us a boost. First of all, in terms of motivation, not just for myself, but the entire organization and our team members. It's really good when somebody recognizes your effort, appreciates it, and awards you for the same. Getting the award of Water Hero from central government, Jal Shakti Water Resources Ministry, was a real boost because they recognized our efforts. We were one of the first few companies in India that started rejuvenating water bodies, and getting early recognition and a really fancy sounding award like Water Hero does help your cause in terms of marketing. Whenever, let's say, we approach a new client, they ask for a track record, a credibility of what all work we've done, where all we've done it. So this does help in that manner as well. Plus, it's a good boost in terms of raising the consciousness of the entire community of all of the people. So when you start talking about a subject, maybe the early adopters or the pioneers would start the discussion, but the masses would soon join in, realize that hey, everybody realizes our water bodies are getting polluted, and something needs to be done. So when a conversation starts on it, when somebody does some work, gets awarded for it, and that's it. That is where momentum starts to kind of form. And so with this award, we were actually then invited to be a speaker at Inkwash in Hyderabad. Um, we got in touch with a lot of civil servants from across the country, a lot of startups working in similar fields who we partnered with. So such awards and such recognition did help us and has helped us reach where we are today.
Yeah, definitely. Like these kind of awards are helping you to move forward. Then it's really great, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So how do you strike a balance between restoring water bodies and ensuring economic viability through revenue generation? So
Right.
can you share some revenue generating models?
Sure. So this balance actually has to come from the government. For example, if really depends on what the government's mood is like, what they want, and the funds availability and the people running it. What I mean by that is some government departments or some corporates simply ask us to provide our products as a normal manufacturing vendor so that the water body could be rejuvenated. A few of our clients actually are even smarter. They go and have a long-term vision of how the water body could be maintained over a longer period of time. And that's when they kind of before rejuvenating a water body, they are also thinking about its long-term sustenance and how revenue could be generated to fund this maintenance. Um, so it is also subjective and is dependent on whether the water body is in an urban area or a rural area. For example, revenue generation activities or the revenue potential of a water body is much more if it is in an urban area as compared to rural. It also depends on the number of eyeballs falling on a lake and its location. For example, any polluted lake which is in the heart of a city, just off a major highway or a major road, attracts a lot more attention. Even the local newspaper and media organizations cover it. And that's when pressure develops on the government to do something about it. But eventually, it boils down to the government. And that's one thing I wanted to highlight is that governments right now are preferring tenders to PPP models. Um, and I think that has to change. We can't really. So in India, we have finally counted about 24 lakh stagnant water bodies, plus the rivers, streams, drains, etc. that flow. Those are different. Just the stagnant water bodies in terms of tanks, ponds, lakes, reservoirs are 24 lakh. Because for the first time in India's history, the water body census was conducted last year in 2023. So with these water bodies identified and their numbers in the tune of 24 lakh, very honestly, the government of India does not have a budget to rejuvenate this quantum of water bodies in the coming 5 to 10 years. And that's all we have in terms of looking at the climate change clock and the time available to turn it around. So the government would simply not be able to provide enough budget. But we still have to solve the problem and rejuvenate each water body. And that is where PPP model could really come in. For example, if there's a huge pond in a rural area, uh, a lot of like fishing activities could be done. The fish could be supplied to the local populace or could be kind of exported or supplied to the city as well. Uh, these bigger ponds in rural areas are generally not polluted and do not have heavy metals or chemical effluents coming in. Those are mostly present in urban areas. So the fish or anything grown in this pond would be edible and clean for human consumption as well. At the same time, besides fishing, for example, lotus or lilies could be found in the same pond. In rural areas, people grow water chestnut or singhade, as they're called. Um, Further activities like developing them as tourist spots or using the land available around the water body could be also kind of used to generate revenue. So that is one direction we should definitely be heading towards. And I think the pioneer civil servants in the governments are the ones that would have to take a lead, ensure that the first few models are tried, refined, and version 2.0 are also tested. And that's when I think the country as a whole and the mass populace would start adopting it as well. And that's my request to, I think, anyone who's listening to me right now, to go towards PPP models and not just be spending government budgets for the same. Yeah.
Right, right. So, what kind of suggestions do you want to give for those who wanted to get into this lake rejuvenation projects?
So, I think my suggestion would be to like any individual looking to get into this sector is first, think about it as to why do you want to get into this sector in the first place? Are you commercially driven? Are you looking to make a business out of it? Or are you looking to solve a problem? Or what's your main agenda of getting into this sector? You should be really clear about this. The next thing is, what is the value that you can provide? For example, any researcher that has developed, let's say, a new type of bacteria or a great aeration system or has a great design for floating wetlands, etc., or any differentiating factor that can give them a competitive edge over other players in the market, can do really well. So you need to have a competitive edge as well. It could be in terms of technology or patent, it could be in terms of capital, it could be in terms of network. Also, one should be clear about what geographies they want to work in. Are they just concerned about their village or city, or they want to kind of scale it up to the entire state or country or the globe for that matter? And what path are you going to take? So, in the past few years, a lot more companies have actually entered in this sector. Now that the budgets from government have started coming in, uh, obviously a lot more companies were expected to enter the sector, and they have. And so if anybody is now looking to enter this sector, be it in the form of an entrepreneur or doing a job, they should be clear about what they want to do and how they're going to go about it. Like one thing that I'd really like to point out to people is this sector is really dependent on the government. If you have the knack for it, if you have the patience for it, if you're okay with working with the government and the associated things you have to do working with the government, you're okay with that, do enter the sector. If you're not okay with the government, working with the government, and would want to stay B2B, there are still options. For example, for like consider us, right? We are rejuvenating water bodies, but don't want to work with the government directly. We'd rather stay B2B, working with NGOs, CSR funds, etc. So one should be really clear about the plan and strategy of what they want to do. Uh, Plus, another problem that I think people should really be picking up right now is the problem of water scarcity and the lakes and rivers drying up. So this is happening throughout the country. Kaveri, I'm sure, is a well-known issue of it drying up, not reaching the sea multiple months a year. The same is happening with Narmada in Madhya Pradesh. So even Narmada does not reach the ocean, the sea, multiple months in a year. So the rivers are drying up, the groundwater is going down, even the lakes are shrinking. So the water scarcity is going to be a major, major issue this year and also in the upcoming future. This year, particularly with El Nino effect coming in, we have observed less than average rainfall, and even parts in Kashmir and northern India where it should have snowed by now, it hasn't. What that means is in the summers, the amount of water flowing in rivers is going to be drastically reduced as well, uh, further aggravating the water scarcity problem. So I think a lot of people should come in and try to solve the problem of water scarcity, pollution, and other problems. And I think that's one way to kind of go about it, find a problem, solve it, and then kind of scale from there. So that would be my message to people.
Those are really amazing insights, Priyanshu. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and about your passion. As we wrap up this incredible episode of Nirmaan Conservation Conversations, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for the passion and your dedication to restoring water bodies is an inspiration to all of us. So,
Thank you so
yeah.
much, Anusha. Thank you for the kind words. And I really had a great conversation with you. And I hope this message reaches out to as many people. Because very honestly, we need to pick this up on a war footing. This year being the election year, even lesser work is going to get executed because of Achar Sanhita and the restrictions before the elections. But at the same time, more work was required this year because of El Nino and the shortage of water. So I'm really hopeful that a lot of people come up this year, start working in January, or sorry, in February itself, and really don't wait for the summers to come in and do just some basic water harvesting efforts, but pick this up on a war footing and take this ahead. I think the onus is on all of us, and particularly the younger generation who is going to be the most affected by climate change and water scarcity and pollution. So the onus is on the young people to take control, lead, and drive change.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much for all the insights. So we are signing off for now until we meet again on the next episode of Nirman Conservation Conversations. Stay inspired, stay connected, and let's continue this journey towards healthier planet. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.